It was my first year of university. I'd just finished unpacking all my stuff into the dorm room and my family had left, giving me my first real taste of independence. That same afternoon, my new roommate finally arrived. Right away, I knew something. Off. He walked in and I greeted him with a smile and stuck my hand out. "Hey, I'm Dan." He just looked at my hand like it was an alien object. After a couple of seconds, he laughed awkwardly and finally went, "Oh," before giving me a limp, clammy handshake. Total dead fish. I had to ask him for his name. He didn't even offer it up when we shook hands. "It's Dale," he said, barely making eye contact. I tried to break the ice a bit, tossing him a few simple questions. But he either gave one-word answers or just nodded, with the occasional awkward smile or giggle. Within minutes, we were both just sitting silently on our beds, typing away on our laptops like strangers at a library table. I was already over it. I mentally drafted a plan to request a new roommate ASAP. Anyone would be better than Dale. At first, I just chalked it up to him being painfully awkward, but I quickly learned Dale wasn't just awkward, there was more going on. Later that evening, I met some of the other kids on our floor. They were friendly and seemed chill, which was a relief. After walking around campus with them and checking things out, I came back to the dorm and found Dale exactly where I'd left him, still on his laptop in the same position. I said, "What's up, Dale?" Nothing. No response. Not that I was shocked. It was only about 9:30 p.m., and I didn't have anything else planned, so I turned off the lamp on my side of the room and climbed into bed. I lay there for hours, while Dale's keyboard clicks and mouse clicks kept going until nearly 3 a.m. When he finally shut his laptop, I was so relieved I passed out instantly. But I didn't sleep for long. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to realize the blinds in our room were wide open and moonlight was flooding in. That wasn't the creepy part. The creepy part was Dale, sitting on the edge of his bed, just staring at me. "What the hell are you doing, Dale?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. He whispered, "Sorry," and laid down without another word. Next morning, Dale was gone when I woke up. I'm pretty sure that was the first time he'd left the room. It was Saturday, orientation day. Campus was buzzing. During a walking tour near the school gardens, I overheard 2 students ahead of me whispering, "What is that kid doing in there?" I looked over. Sure enough, it was Dale. He was literally sitting in the dirt behind a patch of bushes, slowly, rubbing the bark of a tree like he was trying to memorize it. The orientation leader didn't seem to notice, which might have saved us all from a weird explanation. I caught up to the students who saw him and, hoping to bond over the awkward moment, said, "Yeah, that's my roommate." They looked at me with sympathy and laughed. We ended up chatting for a while and making plans to hang out that night. When I got back to the dorm, I found out the school had already approved my request for a new roommate. It felt like things were finally going my way. That night, I left to meet up with my new friends. When I got back, Dale was sitting in the desk chair, just facing the door, like he'd been waiting for me. "Oh, hey, what's up?" I asked, trying not to sound freaked out. "Nothing," he replied, deadpan. I sat on my bed, opened my laptop, and noticed something weird. All my emails were marked as read, including ones I knew I hadn't opened yet. Several of my folders had been opened too. "Dale, did you go through my laptop?" "No," he snapped, practically before I even finished asking. He was lying, and we both knew it, but I didn't press it. I just wanted to get to bed. When I started pulling out my pajamas, I realized my clothes had all been moved around. Definitely not how I left them. I kept quiet, knowing I'd be out of that room for good by the next day, but the night wasn't over yet. I woke up again in the middle of the night, this time to the sound of a zipper. I sat up and saw Dale crouched on the floor, rifling through my duffel bag. I turned on the lamp and said, "What are you doing?" He looked up and stammered, "I think you have my toothbrush by mistake." The guy had no toothbrush in hand. He was just rummaging through my stuff in the middle of the night. I didn't want to start a fight, but I was seriously disturbed. The next day, I moved into my new room down the hall. My new roommate wasn't the most outgoing guy, but compared to Dale, he was a godsend. That night after we chatted and turned off the lights to sleep, I felt relaxed for the first time in days. But of course, the nightmare wasn't over. I woke up in the middle of the night to this weird, soft clicking noise. It happened every 15-30 seconds, irregular but persistent. I got out of bed and walked around trying to figure out what it was. At first, I hoped it was something innocent, maybe a loose floorboard or even a mouse. But when I put my eye up to the peephole in the door, I saw someone standing on the other side. Their head was tilted down, so I couldn't see the face, but I could see their scalp. And the clicking sound? It was the sound of someone slowly trying to jiggle the doorknob. That's when I picked up my phone and called campus police. They arrived within 5 minutes. When they showed up in the common room, I opened the door and there he was, Dale, in handcuffs. I told the cops everything, how he used to be my roommate, how he'd been going through my stuff, and now he was trying to break into my new dorm room. They took him away. I never saw Dale again after that. Maybe he got suspended, maybe expelled. I honestly don't know. I got through the rest of college like any normal student, but that first week, that experience with Dale, every now and then, it creeps back into my head like a bad dream I can't forget. Back when I was at Binghamton University, I only stayed for 2 years, but in that time I built a solid group of friends. We'd go out pretty much every weekend, and when we didn't have parties or anything wild lined up, we'd find our own little adventures. One Friday night in October, we didn't have any big group plans, so it ended up just being me and 2 of my closer buddies hanging out. Instead of staying in or hitting a bar, we decided to head out to the school's nature preserve right by the lake. There was this little clearing on the far side of the lake that was perfect for fires. It was far enough off the trail and tucked away behind trees and bushes that campus security never really bothered with it. Only a few students even knew about the spot. Sometimes a handful of people would go there to smoke weed or drink, but it was mostly quiet. That's exactly what we liked about it. That night, we brought a bunch of beers, lit up a small fire, and just chilled. It was one of those bro chat kind of nights, talking about life, school, girls, whatever came up. As the night went on, the fire flickered softly, casting shadows against the trees. The alcohol started kicking in, and time flew by. At one point, we were laughing so hard that one of my friends was literally rolling around in the leaves, clutching his stomach. Then suddenly the mood changed. My other friend froze mid-laugh and went, "Shh." We all stopped and listened. Crunch. Crunch. Somewhere in the woods, leaves and twigs were being stepped on. We looked at each other. None of us moved. In a panic, we chucked our beer bottles into the lake. None of us were 21 yet, and campus police had a reputation for roaming the preserve at night, hoping to catch students doing illegal stuff. We crammed the rest of the beer into a backpack and stayed silent. But here's the thing. This spot was way off the beaten path. It wasn't like someone would just randomly walk through there. So why did it sound like someone was? The footsteps didn't sound like someone walking straight toward us. It was more like they were circling us, or weaving in a wide arc around the site. Snap. Another twig. Closer this time. At first we joked about it, something like, "Guess we're in the Blair Witch Project now." But none of us laughed for real. We sat there, totally still, just waiting. Then, out of nowhere, a loud thud made all of us jump. A tree branch had landed right in the middle of our fire circle. Not some twig either. A heavy, thick branch, as if someone had thrown it hard. One of my friends didn't wait. He just bolted, took off full sprint toward the trail. The other 2 of us sat frozen. We looked at each other, still not sure what just happened. Was it a prank? Someone messing with us? Before we could really process it, another branch flew through the trees. This time, it struck my friend in the face. He let out a scream of pain and stumbled back, covering his cheek. That was it. No more hesitation. I grabbed the backpack, yanked my friend up, and we took off. We ran blindly through the trees, ducking under branches and dodging roots. The only thing we could think was, get back to campus. Eventually, we broke through the trees and hit the road that separates the preserve from the dorm buildings. We stopped to catch our breath, hearts pounding, clothes full of leaves and dirt. Then we heard it. Footsteps. On the other side of the road, just inside the woods, someone was walking toward us. We didn't wait to see who it was. We sprinted, across the road, back through campus and into our dorm. We found our other friend, the one who ran first, already in his room. He was wide-eyed and out of breath, but safe. We huddled in his room, locked the door, and peeked out the window. Down by the edge of the woods, someone was pacing back and forth. We couldn't see the person's face clearly. It was too dark, but every time a car passed by on the road, the figure would step back into the trees. We watched for a while, but eventually whoever it was disappeared deeper into the forest. We never saw them again. Within 10 minutes of getting back, we were already laughing again. That weird mix of adrenaline and alcohol had us making jokes, saying stuff like, maybe it was a forest ghost, or that's what we get for hanging out in Blair Witch Country. But when morning rolled around and the buzz wore off, the whole thing hit differently. We realized how scary it actually was. Someone, something, was out there in the woods with us, watching us, throwing things at us, following us back to campus. After that night, we never went back to that part of the preserve after dark, not once. Freshman year at the University of Iowa had just kicked off, and I was still settling into campus life. My roommate and I were starting to get along pretty well. He was really into the idea of rushing a fraternity. Like, fully committed. Rush. Week wasn't officially starting until the following week, but the parties were already rolling. Thursday night came around, and he was eager to hit his first frat party. "Come with me," he said. "Why? I'm not rushing," I told him. "Yeah, but I need someone to go with. It's easier to meet people if I don't walk in alone." I didn't have anything better to do, so I agreed. Besides, I wasn't opposed to partying. That was part of the whole college experience, right? His plan was to go to one frat on Thursday night, and then bounce around different ones on Friday and Saturday. The first one we were heading to? It wasn't exactly top tier. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was an underground frat, like, not officially recognized by the university. His logic was that if none of the bigger, more popular frats gave him a bid, this one might be a decent backup. We got in the car and drove far from campus, into the sketchier side of downtown, the kind of place where you wouldn't want to walk alone at night. We pulled up to a corner house that, honestly, looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. If it weren't for the loud music and the line of parked cars, we would have assumed it was just some run-down rental house. We knocked on the door, and this short, sweaty guy in a white t-shirt opened up. He was holding a solo cup and had giant sweat stains around his armpits and belly. "Come in, bros," he said, waving us inside. The house was dark, like really dark, and hot. The living room was packed with at least 50 guys, all crammed into this tiny space. The smell of beer and sweat hit immediately. And girls? Maybe 2. Neither of whom looked like they were having a good time. I tried to make the most of it. I grabbed one of the cheap beers they were handing out, tasted like stale tap water, and made small talk with whoever was nearby. Most of the guys were kind of antisocial, weirdly standoffish. One overweight foreign guy talked to me for a while, but even that conversation felt off. After about 20 minutes of trying to push through it, I signaled to my roommate that I was ready to bounce. But the entrance was now clogged with a big group of guys standing in a tight circle, so we decided to wait it out for a bit longer. I grabbed another beer, then another. I think I was on my 5th cup when this heavy-set dude came up to me with a tiny bottle in his hand. "Try this," he said with a smirk. "It'll get you so messed up." I fake laughed, took the bottle, and thanked him, figuring he'd walk away. But no, he just stood there watching me, like he was waiting. I didn't want to be rude, so I took a sip. It tasted like pure gasoline. Definitely hard liquor, maybe some kind of off-brand vodka or worse. The guy kept chatting me up, but I wasn't really following what he was saying. I just wanted to find my roommate and head out. Then the room started to shift. Everything around me got dimmer. The sound of the music turned muffled. My head started to feel heavy, like someone had stuffed it full of cotton. That's the last thing I remember clearly. The next thing I knew, I was lying in a dark room. Not the main party room, a different one, a bedroom maybe. The music was still going somewhere in the background, so I knew I was still in the frat house. But this room was almost pitch black. I could barely make out a few pieces of furniture and a small closet door. Then I heard it. The crinkle of plastic, like someone had stepped on a bag, coming from the closet. I didn't stick around to find out what or who was in there. I jumped up and bolted out of the room. I ran downstairs, weaving through the crowded living room, and found my roommate. I didn't say a word, just grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the front door, past the same group of guys still hovering there like security guards. Once we were in the car, I spilled everything. I think I was drugged, I told him. His eyes widened. Should we call the cops? I thought about it, but I didn't want the hassle, didn't want to go through a whole investigation or get pulled into some legal mess I didn't fully understand. No, I said. It's fine, I'm fine now. Then he asked a question I hadn't even considered yet. Do you think anyone did anything to you? I checked myself. My clothes were still on. No bruises, no soreness, no signs of anything happening. I was only out for maybe 10 minutes, tops. Nothing happened, I told him. But even then, my voice didn't sound convincing to myself. That night still haunts me. It was supposed to be a dumb, throwaway night at a sketchy frat house. A stepping stone for my roommate. A story we could laugh about later. Instead, it turned into one of the scariest nights of my life. I never went to another underground frat party after that. And I never drank anything from a stranger's hand again. That was the night I learned that even in college, especially in college, you have to keep your guard up. Sophomore year, first semester, I lucked out and got a single dorm room. No roommate. It was in the far corner of the floor, kind of tucked away in its own little hallway. You had to turn a corner just to even see my door. At first, I loved the setup. It gave me the best of both worlds. I could still hang out with friends on the floor whenever I wanted, but when it was time to study or get some rest, I had complete privacy. No sharing space, no awkward small talk, just peace and quiet. But a few weeks into the semester, something strange started happening. It was a random weeknight. I was deep into a study session for a big bio exam, headphones on, completely in the zone. Then I heard a noise. At first, I didn't even register it. It was so faint I thought it was just part of the song I was listening to. But then I paused the music and listened again. Tap, tap, soft tapping, on my door. I pulled off my headphones and called out, "Come in." Nothing. No one opened the door. I got up and opened it myself. No one was there. I stepped out into the little corridor leading to my room, turned the corner and looked down the hallway. Empty. Weird. I figured someone was just messing around or maybe knocked on the wrong door. Whatever. I went back in and left the door open while I finished studying. Nothing else happened that night. The next night was different. I turned off my lamp and crawled into bed, ready to knock out early. But just a few minutes after I turned the lights off, knock, knock, knock. This time it was louder. Not gentle. Tapping, but real knocking. I called out, "Me, who is it?" No answer. I got up fast and opened the door again. Just like before. No one there. I stepped into the hallway and turned the corner quickly, hoping to catch whoever was doing it. Nothing. Not a soul in sight. Now I was starting to get annoyed. Maybe someone on the floor thought this was funny. The next morning I asked around. I talked to a bunch of people on my floor. Everyone denied it. Nobody admitted to playing a prank. And honestly, they all seemed pretty sincere. But then came night 3. I had fallen asleep around midnight and was deep in sleep when I suddenly woke up to a loud bang, bang, bang on my door. This time it wasn't casual. It was urgent. Intense. I froze for a second. Do I open it? Do I just ignore it? Finally, mustered up some courage, jumped out of bed, and yanked the door open. No one there again. But this time, I ran. I sprinted out into my hallway, rounded the corner, and caught a glimpse of someone. The back of a figure turning the next corner at the far end of the hallway. It was quick, just a blur. But someone had definitely been there. I ran down the hallway, turned the next corner, and saw the door to the bathroom slowly shutting. Not a dorm room, not an exit, the bathroom. I was amped up with adrenaline. I wasn't thinking. I barged into the bathroom, heart pounding, pitch black. I slapped the light switch. The bathroom lit up. It looked empty, but 2 stall doors were shut. I dropped to my knees and looked under the stalls. In one of them, I saw boots. Big, heavy, black boots, just sitting there, perfectly placed under the stall door. No legs, no person, just the boots. I stood up slowly, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And then I heard it, a laugh. But not a normal laugh. It wasn't high-pitched or friendly. It wasn't the giggle of someone playing a prank. It was low, gravelly, and cracked, like the laugh of someone who hadn't spoken out loud in years. It sounded like it came from an old man. All my courage vanished in that moment. I didn't check the stall. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and ran straight back to my room. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and jumped back in bed, grabbing my phone. I started texting everyone I knew, trying to get someone to respond. Nobody did. Everyone was asleep. About 10 minutes later, the knocking started again. It lasted about 30 seconds. Loud, steady knocks. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Eventually, it stopped. The next day, I asked everyone I knew on my floor if they were behind it. I even explained the whole thing. The knocking, the figure in the hallway, the boots, the laugh. Everyone looked freaked out, and everyone swore they had nothing to do with it. Some people even came to check out the bathroom with me. Of course, by then the boots were gone. To this day, I have no idea who or what was knocking on my door. I don't know if it was someone messing with me or if it was something else entirely. All I know is that laugh, that sound. It didn't come from a student. It didn't belong to anyone I ever saw on that floor. It belonged to something else, and for the rest of that semester, I kept my door locked. Every single night.